Hello and welcome to another victory edition of the HLS podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ritter. You can call me NB Tex, and you can always join us live over here on twitch.tv/HerLoyalSons. Find the podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you happen to find podcasts at. Leave us a message over at anchor.fm/HerLoyalSons/message. Join us in Discord, live chat, and all that kind of good stuff at HerLoyalSons.com/Discord. And of course, you will always find us at our home at HerLoyalSons.com. With that, I'm going to bring in Shane. Shane, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. It was a semi-bloody week, so it was fun to watch, especially having seen Notre Dame do exactly what they were expected to do and beat that ass. So the chaos was fun. The only thing I'm sad is that Michigan wasn't involved yet. Yeah,
Michigan wasn't involved yet. They were almost involved last week, so we got our bit of fun with them, I would say. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting happenings going on, especially in the ACC. We're going to cover all kinds of happenings, and of course, we will get into talking about Notre Dame and New Mexico as well. There's a lot of stuff to get through, a lot of games, a lot of just offensive ineptitude, I think is the best way to put it.
There was a lot of that.
This was the week of at least you tried. That was this week. All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it. This would have really kicked off to having a blood week, and that would have been if a top 10 got knocked off. And that top 10 was Florida, who ekes it out 29-21 against Kentucky. And now this was, not to take anything away from Kentucky, but Felipe Franks went down with a very horrific injury, which didn't help.
Yeah.
And Kyle Trask came in relief for a 9 out of 13, 126-yard effort. So not exactly tearing up the world. And yes, Milfy pointing out in the chat, 19-0 without Felipe. So yeah, that's what they were able to put things together. But Kentucky did have this one all the way to the end. They missed a 35-yard field goal that would have given them the lead, and then Florida ended up ripping off a 76-yard TD. So much for bleeding the clock, which gave them that 29-21 victory. And some fun stats in this one, Shane. We're talking about offensive ineptitude. Both teams had over 400 yards, and nobody cracked 30 points.
Yeah.
6 combined turnovers will do that to you.
Yeah, they basically left all their yardage on the field. There's a lot of back and forth. The sad reality is that, even though Felipe Franks went down with a horrible injury, Florida had yet to establish itself as a superior team at any point before his injury. And then, following his injury, the team kind of rallied, and I feel like Kentucky kind of lost contain there at the last second and didn't realize that Florida was still trying to play, and then oops, a touchdown. But it just, nothing about this Florida team is giving me any, they belong in the top 10. No, every time they get a chance, it's kind of just it's that week one them against Miami feel where it's this is disgusting.
Yeah, nothing's looked great for them, and the play was sloppy altogether. I mean, not only were there 6 turnovers, Kentucky had 4, Florida had 2. There were almost 160 combined penalty yards in this game, split almost down the middle, 79 for Florida, 78 for Kentucky. So it was just all kinds of a mess, just an ugly, ugly game. And you'll notice this will be a recurring theme going on here.
Yep.
But this was beautiful. Southern Cal. Oh, they go on the road to BYU and lose in overtime, 30-27. Hope you enjoyed your brief stay in the top 25 SC. Slovis, who I still think could be a potential problem, he looked like a freshman this time.
Yep.
It wasn't that ball placement was awful. It was that he was clearly forcing it. He knew he was the offense, and that got in his head. And he forgot you got to read defenders in the college game as well, and BYU made him pay for it. The first drive was a touchdown. The next 2 drives after that, interception. Yep. He did have a good game, though, 24 for 34, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. The last one ended the game in overtime. He threw a pick in OT. But yeah, look, Slovis, SC is going to live and die with him. It reminds me of some of those Auburn teams that, live and die on quarterback play. If you're going to have a decent game, if there's no quarterback play, you're toast.
Pretty much. I mean, Okay, so yes, Southern Cal seems to be essentially not even just one dimensional, like single player dimensional at this point. But can we talk about like BYU's like sneaky dangerous? Like what is it about this team? Because I understand that BYU always has a play up to the competition kind of attitude, but it feels like this year in particular, it's they play up specifically to that opponent's weakness. USC they found that USC is going to rely on Keaton's arm in pressure moments, and third down situations are going to be that more magnified, and that's exactly what they exploited on third down in overtime. And then they're intercepting the pass, and that was the end of that. But they did the same thing to Tennessee. They got their asses whooped by Utah. Let's not get it twisted. But it feels like BYU is one of these sneaky, like, just don't play us. Like we're service academying right now. Don't play us.
Yeah, it's like they've been trying to make up for lost opportunity, dropping the rivalry game against Utah. And look, week one sloppiness happens. Perhaps that's all they needed was week one to get rid of the slop. And then, look, let's be honest. Even though Tennessee has their problems, and look, hat tip to y'all for finally getting your victory and beating the hell out of Chattanooga. Good job, Vols. But that's a huge win. That's like program building type stuff. And look, BYU is an independent, like true independent, is struggling to put schedules together. Just because what good does it do if you play BYU? I mean, this is a potential result right here. I mean, this completely torpedoes SC for really having any kind of a claim. Not that they were going to for the playoff, but if you're going to try to build a resume together, well, that's all toast right now. And they're looking like, well, shit, hopefully we can survive back in the Pac-12. But when you take a look at your schedule and you got Utah coming, and you lost to the team that lost to Utah, you can't have good feelings right now. But yeah. BYU, I think BYU's always been an aggravating team because the one claim that they still hold to is the defense. They still play very good fundamental defense for the most part. So you can take advantage of a team that is making mistakes, and that's what they did here.
For sure.
All right. Well, this is going to come out the gate a little bit sooner than usual. It's time for the Night's Watch. Yes, and we are enjoying the warm forest fire that UCF started.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah, I like how Milfy is like the music is timed nice with the Zoom. It's almost like I planned it that way and spent way too much time and effort. But yes, UCF 45, Stanford 27. The big story here, especially for those of us really hoping that we could follow the trials and tribulations of one Brandon Wimbush, that watch, I think his watch has ended.
Yeah, it's already looking a lot like he is now relegated to the fourth position in the quarterback depth chart. Dylan Gabriel has essentially seized control, and now you have Darrell Mack, who is coming back from his broken ankle or leg, I believe it is, from the summer. He's already coming back to the starting lineup. So, I mean, yeah, he didn't see action last week, and he was number 3. It's starting to look a lot like, he's not going to be seeing action again.
Yeah, especially when a true freshman, and that's the big lefty Dylan Gabriel, 22 for 30, 347 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, apparently this is a thing. Freshman quarterbacks and Stanford secondary looks like total garbage. So maybe we just let Phil walk on into the farm there, because that seems to just short circuit them completely.
Apparently Brendan Clark could get it done. Who knows?
I mean, you might as well take a shot if you got that redshirt game, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so KJ Costello did come back from his concussion. He did not have a good performance whatsoever against UCF. 21 for 44, 199 yards, a touchdown and interception. UCF, I mean, just put an absolute beating on him. This was so much fun to watch, and I kept this on while the Notre Dame game was on as well, keeping tabs on it while we were beating the hell out of New Mexico. 547 yards of total offense, 347 through the air, as we mentioned, almost 200 on the ground, 198 total. And this is what UCF had been waiting for. Obviously, they would have liked Stanford to be a little bit better and actually ranked coming into this. But the knock on them is you don't play any Power Fives. And they finally got a Power Five in there, and they said, well, we can't help that Stanford wasn't any good. There's going to be teams that struggle with Stanford. So I think that excuse kind of goes out the window there.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted the opportunity. They knew that they were going to have the opportunity to kind of like establish themselves on that national stage, kind of ride the fact that they started the season the highest rank that they ever have, and use that to kind of propel their case as they approach an undefeated season, if they can achieve such a thing. And this was going to be like one of their major roadblocks. And now, the next one is maybe no. I mean, it would have been Cincinnati. Pittsburgh is next. I mean, we saw how that went. I understand that it was a rivalry game, which is why they played Penn State close. But aside from the weather effect on that under. For that point total, they weren't a great team, So it's at this point now UCF is in the driver's seat, and they wanted this opportunity. And man, I mean, this is happening at the same time as Notre Dame, New Mexico. And at one point, Chase Claypool and Gabriel Davis both scored a touchdown at the exact same time. And I was about losing my shit. It was I was just having a fantastic time.
Yeah, really, the afternoon slate in general, that mid-afternoon was prime time as far as everything else went for this week. We definitely had the most fun there. That's where you had the upsets. That's where you had this beating. But you also had some other things going on. You had whatever this was, and that was Arizona State beating Michigan. State, rather, not Michigan. Oh, God, that would have been even better. 10-7.
Yeah.
And, God, I'm glad I barely watched any of this game, because this was just awful. Look,
I didn't either, because I just kept looking at the score like I know exactly what's happening, and I do not want to be any part of that. No, sir.
Arizona State won this game with 216 total yards of offense. Mm-hmm. 76 on the ground, 140 through the air.
They committed a crime on national television.
Unbelievable. Here's their drive chart, and this has to be Dan's bit. It has to absolutely, because this is, again, tailor-made for it. Punt, 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 field goal, halftime, punt, 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 touchdown, which wins the game. They were 4 for 13 on third down. They ran 41 total plays. They won this game. Sparty had over 400 yards, and they only put up 7 points. 91 yards of penalties, though.
It's always this thing, like Michigan State comes to bring the wood, right? And then now they have a Hermite problem. So that's I don't know. What is this? I mean, it's the same thing as last year. Herm Edwards comes up to Michigan State, and all of a sudden they can't beat a better team. I mean, last season the whole excuse was, it was definitely the body blow theory. There's the time zones, man. Like totally. Yeah. Okay. Now what?
Yeah, now you're just bad. And the most epic thing at the end of this game was how it ended, because Michigan State is trying to tie the game at the end. And this is perfect Sparty no, because they line up the game time field goal with 12 men on the field. I have never seen 12 men on a field goal attempt on the offensive side of the ball.
With 100% confidence, too. They were just like, yep, here we all. We all belong here.
They had timeouts. It's not like that was the reason. It wasn't like D'Antonio was screaming on the sidelines and somebody needs to get out or they need to try to do something else. Nope. Because the great part was they made that field goal.
Yep.
They had to review it to make sure there were 12 men on the field. And then they had to kick it again, and dude just shanks it hard left.
Far left, yep.
And that's how the game ends. And I love that. There's a picture that's already burned in my mind is Herm trying to give D'Antonio a hug at midfield, and he's like kind of like side hugging him like there because D'Antonio's trying to get the fuck out of there. He's so mad. He can't believe this just happened. He's embarrassed, and Herm is just like, no, man, come on, bring it in. Like you had a good game, and D'Antonio's like, just fuck you. I want to kill you right now. Dude goes in and just he went off as hard on the refs as he could. So I guess he wasn't happy with the rest of the performance. Again, 91 penalty yards. Don't blame you, but there's only so much you can do when you put up 7 fucking points with over 400 yards, dude.
That's the problem. Is they just never finished. They never finished. They had the same problem essentially that Florida and Kentucky had with each other. Is they had a bunch of fucking yards and nobody could hold onto the ball. And they never finished their drives. And I mean, at this point, the Michigan State offense is like, do they belong in the top 25? Because I don't know what to make of them. One week they look decent, the next week they look like ass, and then they have a week that looks like this, where it's like, I'm sad you guys played that game. To be honest.
And look, I know, Dino, he's a Arizona State alum. I know you don't like it when we are all up on Herm's ass here, but I'm sorry, Arizona State is not going to be that great of a team, especially in this Pac-12 Destruction Derby. They're going to sneak up on a couple of people, maybe, but God, again, 216 total yards.
Yeah, it's not a good showing for anybody involved. Yeah, everyone is worse now.
This is I don't know what to think of Michigan State either. I don't know what to think about certain parts of the Big Ten, and we're going to get to some of those later. We'll get to part of it because El Asico was Maximo Asico.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It was Maximo Asico on every level, especially in terms of how long the game took.
There were not one, but 2 weather delays in this 18-17 thriller where Iowa holds on to victory. And it ends, God, this is why the Shutdown Fullcast folks call it El Asico, because it ends. The Cyclones are going to get a chance to receive a punt. Get one last shot to go take down your rival. What do? The gunner, or the guy defending the gunner, runs into his own punt returner. Yep. The ball hits them. Live ball, Iowa recovers, ball game.
Yep.
And
I was ecstatic because I had Iowa to win by 1. So I about lost my fucking mind. But I mean, it was not exciting. When they came back, like nobody started to lighten off the fireworks. I mean, it had been like 13-6 up until that point, and then it was just more sad, depressing, weather-affected football. But Iowa State just they had every chance, man. They had the chance, not every chance, a chance, but the chance, and they very classically almost Notre Dame special teamed it. So it had that almost like a Charlie Weisian feel to it.
Yeah, very 2000. This happened in 2007. The punt going off the punt team's head when they're not paying attention. But this was another game. 400 yards of offense plus for Iowa State, 17 points.
Yeah, nobody can deliver. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, and there's only so much you can blame on the weather, but if you're getting 400 yards, you need to find your way into the end zone somewhere along there. Just unreal. We're going to start talking about the ACC now, and we're going to start with the highlight reel of it, which is Clemson. They curb stomped Syracuse 41-6. I mean, the most exciting part about this game was Clemson covering that 28-point spread on a 2-play, 60-yard drive with 48 seconds remaining. Ches Malusi, I think is how you say his name, has a 57-yard TD run, which gets the absolutely enraging cover if you're on the other side. Yeah. But, I mean, it was a bloodbath. Absolute bloodbath. Syracuse couldn't get 200 yards. They only rushed for 15 yards. Clemson, on the other hand, they passed for 391 alone, a rush for 221. Lawrence goes 22 for 39, has 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he was sloppy, and they still did this. He threw 2 picks, and they still destroyed them.
That's the thing. It's like in the first half, it kind of felt like, hey, maybe Syracuse could keep this interesting because it was only like 17-6 after the half, and it was like, okay, Clemson has shown itself to be better. Syracuse has shown itself to be worse, and yet They're doing this weird, scrappy, they're not going away kind of thing. But then, the second half appeared, and all that shit was nullified because even when they made mistakes, they scored.
Yeah, and you have ATN leading all rushers, 76 yards. T. Higgins and Amari Rogers over 100 receiving yards. Clemson's walking into the playoff. Like
Pretty much.
There has to be a Clemsoning. Why would I say that in week 3 right off the bat? Well, let's go take a trip around the ACC, folks. We're going to have to take a little trip around here, and I'm going to have some like appropriate music for this because we're going to try to quick fire through most of this. Florida State did it again. They lost another fucking game at the tail end, 31-24 your final, where Virginia misses an extra point to tie the game, so they're trailing by 1. Florida State responds by going 3 and out, and Virginia responds with a 5-play, 72-yard TD drive, and they get the 2-point conversion. But that's not all, folks. FSU comes back. They get a BS roughing the passer. Refs trying to bail them out. And then they get another first down. The clock apparently runs 2 extra seconds, but they had a play called. They were ready for it. And it was a direct snap, like 7 yards out from the end zone. Ball game.
The end.
Just awful.
Why is, you know what it is? Like, I think, why is Florida State so unwatchable? So, every game they're in, it is utterly unwatchable.
And it's the same story. Get lead, blow it in second half. Get lead, blow it in second half. I said it on the pick show. The only thing that screwed me here was that the hook was 7.5.
Yeah, it was that little half. That little hook got your ass. I mean, that's what they do. But I mean, it's got the markings, all the markings of a team that expected big things, but didn't expect to have to, like, keep them, like, once they got them. It's that team that's like, oh, we're up 12 points, or we're up 14 points. Like, let's ride this out. We'll probably win anyway. They have that behavioral dynamic. They just don't look like they know how to finish a game.
They don't. No, they flat out don't. They can't.
They know how to show up and be flashy, but they have no idea how to finish.
And I know there was a lot of controversy over the couple of seconds that ran off with the quote-unquote home cooking after a bullshit penalty, which makes me laugh because, I mean, the cornerback literally just jumped up and kind of ran into Blackman. It was an awful call, but spike the ball, man. If you got enough time to run a direct snap, spike the ball and call another play. That's, oh God, all kinds. Well, we're not done yet. Oh, we're not done yet. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Penn State. Penn State escapes another weather-delayed game, 17-10.
Their first ever weather delayed.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, this may also be the first time they've heard this or heard an opposing coach say this. We're going to talk about Pat Narduzzi here, who kicked a field goal while down 7 on the 7-yard line. And it was missed, justly missed. The ball was very mad. Ball doesn't lie. He said later in the press conference, while trailing by 7, it's a 2-possession game to win. Apparently, he has never heard of a 2-point fucking conversion. He said it was a 2-possession game while down by 7, and there was just no doubt at all that he needed to kick the field goal.
This man is a paid head coach at a Division I school. I just want everyone to understand that. Like, there's probably 100 other coaches out there that have been busting their ass that do not have jobs. This guy does. Okay.
Yeah. And Ryan Nanny had something great in the top whatever in the inbox. Saying, if you're thinking could Pitt have really won, please know that they, 1, punted from the Penn State 37 in the first quarter, had a 3rd and goal from the 2, threw a pass like 5 yards, and did this and settled for a field goal, punted on 4th and 2 from the 48 in the fourth quarter, had 1st and goal on the 1, threw an incomplete pass, had the QB run for no gain, threw another incomplete pass, attempted this stupid-ass field goal, and even though they were down 7 and missed it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to work. You have to absolutely work to be this bad.
That takes a committed amount of effort.
Oh, but see, Shane, this gets worse. Hey, Marilyn, how you doing?
Oh, God, get out. You know what? Get out. We forgot we invited you. We're sorry. We forgot. Get out.
The number 1 offense in the nation falls on their face at Temple, 20-17. And, I mean, You know how to kill an offense, Shane?
How do you do that?
You do jack shit in the red zone. They were 2 for 6, both TDs. At least they got that going for them. The other 4 attempts were turnover on downs. 2 of those drives in the red zone started in the red zone. One on the 4-yard line, one on the 10. They went 4 and out on both of them.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, they turned it over on downs both times. I have no idea. Like, I obviously Temple, we all know, has a very respectable and powerful defense. They have for some time, but this was, like you said, the number 1 offense in the country thus far, having put up back-to-back almost 70 each week, and they come in. This was 7-2 for the first half.
It was, yeah. Milfy was just asking, when did 7-2? It absolutely was.
For the first half of the game, like, their only points were that stupid safety, and then they just couldn't. They clearly couldn't put anything else together. They had to go for 2 on 1 touchdown, and still came up short.
And it ends in the best way possible, with Temple needing to run a couple extra seconds off. They run the ball out of the back of the end zone to give up a safety, the second safety of the game.
Yeah, whoever, if you were betting like crazy prop bet fucking results on these scoring drives, you would have been a wealthy man in this one.
Oh. Shane, can we get dumber?
Of course we can. Of course we can.
Let's talk about a couple FCS games in this ACC.
Yes.
Virginia Tech survives against Furman 24-17 because Virginia
legit survives.
Yeah, because in this game, Virginia Tech didn't put it away until they had a touchdown with 5 minutes left in the game. It was 17-14 before that. At Virginia Tech, they could only put up 350 yards overall. Both teams turned the ball over twice, but don't worry, we actually had an FCS upset. The Citadel, a triple option team, facing a team that was formerly triple option in Georgia Tech. They won this one in overtime, 27-24, proving irony is not dead.
Yeah, I mean, how hilarious! Like, you can't write this shit.
It's
This
great.
team was like, we're gonna do away with that whole triple option thing. Paul Johnson's out of here. Where it's a whole new era. Don't worry. We'll get through the first couple of opponents. They're very easy ones. We got FCS opponents. We'll pay them like $400K. We'll get that W, and then we'll get our confidence going. Oh, what's that? They beat us with their own medicine.
And this was, remember how we said last week, Army did not have a typical Army take the air out of the ball game? Citadel did. They outgained Georgia Tech 350 to 301 yards. They only had 30 passing yards. Just beautiful. They hold the ball for nearly 42 minutes. This game. And Georgia Tech had to be the ones to send this to overtime with the field goal, not the Citadel. But to make it even better,
they asked for it.
They did, and Georgia Tech misses. You can't score a touchdown against the Citadel in overtime. You missed the field goal. Citadel drains one, and there you go. I don't know. I mean,
I'm sure it could be worse, but you know what? Show me. Could it be worse now?
Well, I don't know. Do you call losing to Kansas at home worse?
I would call it worse if it's their first Power 5 win in 48 attempts.
Then there you have it. Kansas 48. Boston College 24. But BC got doubled up by freaking Les Miles in Kansas.
Yeah, again, a 48-game Power 5 losing streak broken by getting deuced up by Kansas. There you go.
And look, Kansas, if you haven't been paying attention to them, last week they lost to Coastal Carolina at home 12-7. And then Kansas's other win until this one was against Indiana State 24-17. They barely beat Indiana State. And they just whipped up on BC on the road.
Yeah. And this is that Boston College team. Yeah, Boston College team, mind you, that put that hurting on that ass on Virginia Tech in week 1.
Well, again, are you surprised how Virginia Tech barely beat Furman?
Exactly.
So that is our look around the ACC. I'm glad I've got to use the derp song very liberally in that one. But yeah, they're going to make a walk. Before we get to the Notre Dame game, we're going to take a look at our future opponent, and that is Georgia, who, they laid down the whooping on Arkansas State, 55-0. They were doing a real nice thing. The head coach of Arkansas State, his wife passed away from breast cancer. They were, making the stands pink. A nice show of respect when you absolutely bury his ass throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Georgia had an 8.1 yard rushing average in this one. If that doesn't terrify you.
No, I mean, it does. Georgia in general terrifies me. I mean, look, this was going to be this result regardless. I mean, I understand, the gestures it's all well and good. It's obviously it's great sportsmanship to show the support for the visiting coach's situation, but this was never going to be anything but like a 40-something to nothing result. This Arkansas State team was not going to keep up well with Georgia's overall size and speed. Their running game was going to utterly crush them, and it showed. This isn't really a surprising result. And that's kind of why this wasn't really one of the main watch this games, because it was like, are we going to go enjoy our own murder, or are we going to just bear witness to a second and become an accessory to it?
Yeah, I mean, look, both teams doing a homicide before they face off against each other. This one, I would argue a little bit more impressive than what Notre Dame did. 43 rushing yards is all Arkansas State could muster. They got 220 total. Georgia put up 656 yards total in this one from 17 for 22. That is 5 incompletions, folks. 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Swift leading the way, 9 carries, 76 yards, and gets 2 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. 4 different running backs get a touchdown. And only looking at the individual box score and seeing the long plays, I found 6 explosive plays of 30-plus yards alone for Georgia. They only surrendered 1, and that was a 45-yard reception from Arkansas State that went nowhere. But if you want some silver lining, Notre Dame fans, Georgia was only 4 for 10 on third down conversions. That's about all that. If you get them to third down, you got a chance.
Yeah, that means, well, we share that in common. We're both very bad at the third down thing.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, again, what else to say? It was an absolute murder. It's about what we expected. And
my only hope is that they got it out of their system, and now they're going to be bad.
Yes, that's all you can hope for. But we'll talk about the other murder. We'll talk Notre Dame, New Mexico, and we will do that right after this. And folks, yes, this will be where we do the podcast ad in between here. And for those of you in Twitch, remember you got the cheers at your disposal. It is September from Subway, so apparently there's a nice little Subway thing you can do in your cheers, and that will match you 10% for any of those. And your Tier 1 subs are also half off. Definitely thank you for the support. Great way to support the show and the site. And with that, we're going to get right back into it. Okay, Shane, so now we got to talk about the most points Notre Dame has scored. I saw somebody had it out since the 70s. I know it was the most in an opener since, like, freaking Rockney days, just about. Yeah. 66 to 14 your final. Now, if you want to compare Notre Dame and Georgia, the yards that Notre Dame gave up was 363 yards. A couple big defensive lapses really caused that. And New Mexico helped the Irish out, turning the ball over 4 times in this game.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like for like a quarter that they were keeping pace, even though the score did not reflect it. They had that feel because they were getting chunk yardage, and then, they died. But look, I see here on the notes we have an important talking point to discuss first.
Yeah, I mean, we've set this up. We really need to focus on the big story here. That is the sideline sky cam.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think I am on a very small island with very few villagers around me.
Please enjoy your very small island. I am going to stay over here on I'd rather not be shit-faced feeling when I watch my television. I swear to God, I thought I was on a drone. Like, I was just, oh shit, we're delivering a package. Oh shit, we're going that way. Like, at any point when the ball, when the play stretched to the near sideline, it felt like you were looking over the side of a cliff of a building. Like, you had to be like, oh, where'd the play go? Oh, it's down there. Oh, there it is. Okay, is that a first down? Can anyone see? It just felt very strange to have it doing all that weird pivoting. But of course, on the wide angles, it was very cool. Like you see the larger side of the field from kind of a coach playery perspective. But it just didn't. There wasn't enough balance of that for me. I didn't like it. You?
Yeah, I mostly liked it, with the one exception, like what you said, was when a play came to the near sideline and they had to flip it down immediately. Yep. That's where it was absolutely brutal, and that did get a little bit vertigo-y. I didn't have as many motion, sickness type complaints as I think most of my timeline did when I saw the initial reactions.
Felt very weird.
And I know the idea is that, like, in between the 20s is where they're going to use that cam, and in the red zone they were going to go hard cam traditional. And it did look like they went hard cam traditional for a little bit too, I think, after some of the backlash, and they kind of flipped back and forth. But when you have a lot of long touchdowns and you have crazy pick sixes, it gets a little jarring. It does not flow very well for when you have the sudden, change of possessions or some sudden cuts. It was hard for...
I felt like the Kyle Hamilton play wasn't as pretty because of it.
No, the replay made it look a heck of a lot better because what they're trying to do, and what I wish they wouldn't, is they're trying to zoom in as close as they can on the action once it happens, like the hard cam typically would do. But it's much easier to adjust that cam, I think, than this little drone that they had moving on, because you ended up missing parts of the play. You lost some of the field perspective, so that part I didn't like, but... like, from a perspective of I can kind of see things developing a little bit better, I did like that. So I'm hoping they can find some balance in between it, because the reactions were largely negative, to say the least. So I don't know if NBC is going to go, fuck you, we're doing it anyway, let's keep rolling with this, and we're just going to make it better. Or if they just end up scrapping the whole thing. Because I read up some more on it. They wanted to use more of it during the blue gold game, but the wind was too high. Well...
Oh.
I don't know if you realize that you're trying to do this in South Bend. Wind happens there. So if this is very dependent on good weather conditions, we get to use this twice? And at that point, what the fuck does it even matter?
Yeah. I hope if they're going to keep using it, that they figure out a way to make it a little better, or to use it for specific scenarios. Like maybe, I don't know, like maybe use it as like a new... red zone kind of like angle that they can get like the whole side of the field in a better, I don't know, like it seems like it's got good situational use, but to be regularly used, it's a little much.
But this screams something that should be an extra stream via NBC's website. Is what it how ESPN,
like another camera option.
Yeah, how ESPN does the multiple camera angles, because I could see the use for it, and because of my messed up mind, I'm like, oh, if I ever get a chance to do a film review again, I have much better angles now. It's much easier to see the play. Well, that's great for me writing a freaking post on the internet. Not as good, because you could definitely tell it was a rough sledding for them controlling that camera.
Yeah, you could tell for sure.
Yeah, so. That is the important note. Let's talk about the other important note, and that was Notre Dame got off to yet another very slow start. The entire first quarter, it was unwatchable for multiple reasons, according to a lot of people. One was the camera, the other was the offense.
It's the intermediate slow pacing, like between 6 to 15 yard passing nonstop bullshit. That's the stuff that feels like, why are we starting this way? Can we not explode from out the gate?
And do y'all remember how you were asking in the sim, did we hack it for all the screenplays? It felt like the sim hacked Chip Long's brain.
They knew.
Because, I don't know, I guess they just like, hey, book, we're going to do timing exercises here instead of just going after them. I don't know if it was checkdowns, if he's changing the play at the sideline, at the line of scrimmage, or what was going on, but everything just seemed so ultra conservative, and honestly, it felt like that rippled throughout the game because the offensive line never got a push. They just were back on their heels the entire time, and there was a lot of short conversions that weren't made, and you're like, well, if we can't do this against New Mexico, God help us against Georgia's front seven, because there were multiple times, and I know New Mexico runs a base 3-down lineman, but there were a couple times even on the extreme short yardages that they didn't even cheat a linebacker up to effectively give 4-down linemen. And Notre Dame struggled on those too.
Yeah.
It was weird.
There was one where they rushed 2 and Ian Book was forced to scramble. It was like, okay, what
Yeah, and well, I mean, in Book's defense, he actually made a decent call there. He gave it some time, looked around, but the offensive line, not being able to pass protect a little bit longer with two was weird. It wasn't the best game for the line. So if you were looking for that as a little bit of silver lining for, we bowled them over, we're ready for Georgia. No, not you don't have that confidence builder. Book eventually got his feet under him. He went 15 for 24 for 360 yards, 5 touchdowns. Now, I want to say one thing about this stat line because there were 2 touch passes, and this is basically like the little shovel, which is modified jet sweep.
Volleyball chesters,
which are great because they worked. I mean, 2 of them went for touchdowns: a 54-yarder by Fink and a 59-yarder by recently converted running back Avery Davis. That must have been a thrill and a half for him to get. So, kudos to him. But let's take those 2 plays away. Now Book is 13 for 22, 247 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, let's also keep in mind one of those passing touchdowns was Javon McKinley just running out of his damn mind.
Ending half of the team.
Absolutely unbelievable. That TD reception, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him because he had himself a game. 3 receptions, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. But this one in particular was a little 5-yard drag route that he extended into a 65-yard touchdown reception. So if you take away those extra 60 yards and assume it won't be a touchdown, Book is now 12 for 21, 187 yards, and 2 TDs. So not exactly a performance that you're hoping for when you're saying that this has got to be the guy that has one of the best games of his career if Notre Dame's going to have a chance to beat Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, he is, and since week 1, this is kind of like the old Pete Sampson adage. It's like you will know exactly what you need to know about this team after week 1. And the one thing that still seems to hold true, and I am concerned is going to hold true, is that Ian Book is not quite the passer we were hoping or expecting he would be at this stage. He's getting kind of like the stats padded by some situational, circumstantial stuff that doesn't quite add up or to a total performance for him. And we're probably not going to get an opportunity to see that until, at least now week 4. But, next week is not going to be the time to be like, oh, look, now I've arrived. It's like, have you? Because we're in Athens and everyone's terrified and everything's fine.
Right.
So,
yeah, and the other concerning part with the offense in general is that Ian Book is your leading rusher in this game. Which I would not have guessed. I would not, even watching that whole thing, being very concerned, especially initially with the way the offense was going. But no, 9 for 46 and 1 TD. So look, I know Jafar Armstrong's hurt. I know Jameer Smith is hurt. So Tony Jones didn't really get a whole lot of touches in this game, which was also kind of interesting. But I'm guessing let's not put more miles on those tires. Let's not have him take unnecessary contact. Let's give some of the younger guys. Let's give Kyron Williams. Let's give Sebo Flemister a few more touches. But man, it was just the whole rushing attack was just weird, and really the reason Book leads on that rushing total was because of a couple of those scrambles that we were talking about, where New Mexico just lost contain on him completely. They didn't have him spied, and there he goes.
Yeah, I mean, when in watching the game, it now in retrospect is evident. It's like, okay, I did not really see a lot from the running back crew there, but. Avery Davis did manage to rip off that huge pass, or again, the little touch pass, but, it felt kind of like a run. But yeah, it is concerning to think that behind Jafar Armstrong, Tony Jones was supposed to be, the backup production, and now that position is pretty much completely void of production. Like, how? Throughout the entire spring, the number one question was about linebacker, and throughout the summer the same. And then, somehow the running back position depth just seemed to go under the radar because it was immediately made evident to us. Behind Jafar Armstrong, there was not enough to rely on. And now we're in that position, and it's like, well, how do we not see this coming? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and thankfully we're going to get Smith back, and I'm assuming, and both Komet and Smith should be back, and even though it sounded like they probably could have played if they needed to, no reason to run them out against New Mexico. And again, the offensive line did get their footing. Milfy asked an interesting question. He wanted to know what the first quarter stats were, and while I don't have a split for this game, I do have a split for the 2 games that Ian Book has had in the first quarter. I think it's worth, at least talking about here. So in the first quarter so far, Ian Book is 6 for 13 for 49 yards.
Ooh.
Longest pass is 16. Only getting 2 first downs. That's scary.
Bad. I mean, first of all, the team in general is very bad on third down. On offense, they are very anemic on third down.
Yeah.
But
and then
49 total yards in a whole quarter of play.
2 games.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, and it's not like those 2 games were against really rough defenses either. I mean, after that, you see some improvement, 12 for 18 in the second quarter, 3 touchdowns, and then 7 for 10 in the third quarter with 3 touchdowns. So, gets better. But it's one of those things where you don't want to see those slow starts. And in the fourth quarter, we can toss out because that was garbage time largely for both games, especially in this one where he didn't even play and didn't play most of the third quarter either. So, I mean, look, they did settle in. Book did get his confidence back as he went later on in the game. He was throwing some really pretty balls. He had a lot of his confidence back. He didn't make any bad decisions, and he had much less happy feet. But again, New Mexico at home, it's really hard. And really, look, understand it's New Mexico, but what I really wanted to see, like for me personally in this game, was for him just to come out on fire. Just that Louisville thing was a fluke. So we're just going to go right out the gates here because I need to see that to know it's a potential because you're going to need it against Georgia. Georgia's a game that can go south very, very quick because of the way they play defense. And because their offense is very, very predominantly, they can just run you over. So they can hold the ball forever if they feel like it and make sure you don't get to touch the ball again. That's what concerns me. I wanted to see a little bit more of that. Saw it later in the second quarter and the offense, showing that they have some weapons. Avery Davis, may keep a defensive coordinator awake at night a little bit extra because he had some jets that I wasn't expecting.
Javon McKinley would give me fucking pause.
Yeah, and Javon McKinley having his emergence. I mean, there was a lot of positives that could come from this game. It was just the slow start was, and man, in the first quarter, there was a lot of people going chicken little on it. I wasn't that bad, but I was like, this is frustrating. This is a very frustrating watch right now.
Yeah, it is. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, and Claypool had a good game as well. He made a couple very, very pretty catches. But, and Phil Dracovic, we should say he finally got his first chance to fling it. And
his first pass.
52-yard perfect
bomb to Lindsey.
Yeah, and everybody, 2 people's like, well, maybe we should put Phil in. Why isn't Lindsey playing some more? And I'm getting texts from one of my friends, why isn't Lindsey going?
This is why you guys it's why we can't have nice things, because of these reactions. These are stupid reactions.
Yeah, and look, it's not because they don't have talent. There's a reason there's people ahead of them in the depth chart. It's not like, look, yeah, Lindsey's super, super fast, but he is not a good route runner right now. And he also needs to be able to block downfield, which is highly important, especially in an RPO-type offense when you got to have those reactions to turn around and be blocking for your quarterback or your running back after your quick little route's done. Yeah, I mean, you got to have those quick reactions and be physical. And I'm hoping that's something maybe McKinley can do as well, because McKinley and Claypool would be 2 huge bodies.
McKinley,
on the outside.
6'2". I mean, he muscled his way through 6 tackles. I mean, it appears that's the option right there. I mean, in terms of an alternative.
And you're going to face a very physical secondary in Georgia, so you're going to need those big bodies. Fink, I mean, it's not that he's bad. You're going to have 3 receivers on most of these formations anyway. So just put him in the slot. I mean, he's going to do damage.
He's just got to watch all that Renfro Alabama national championship game tape. He's that guy.
He is. He absolutely is. And that guy is extremely important. And that slippery fox. I mean, he showed it. He turned on the Jets too in that little touch pass, jet sweep, whatever the hell you want to call it, play on there as well. We haven't gotten to talk much about the defense. We might as well start at the top with Kyle Hamilton.
A legend is born.
Oof. It had the feeling of, we fucked around on offense just to let him touch the ball.
Kind of, right? Like they were just like, what a weird time to have a freshman safety in the game. What? It's not even the second quarter yet. What are we doing?
And granted, it was tipped, but just incredible reactions to be able to adjust to it. And I mean, he basically ran through the ball in stride,
Yeah.
which
It
was
was
just
tipped,
sick.
but you saw in the replay that the only thing that changed in his motion when it was tipped was the direction of his eyes. His body was still going in the exact same speed and direction, and he almost was like, "Oh shit, I'm here. Oh, the ball. Hello."
Yeah, because the ball kind of hit him in the face, and he kind of trapped it a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but had that pass not been tipped, I still think he jumps that route
Oh,
because he was
absolutely.
all over it.
He saw it before. He saw it before the quarterback decided, "I am now going to throw my arm back to prepare this throw." It's almost like Kyle can see that happening before it happens.
Yeah, and Sean Crawford gets some turnovers too, as well in this one. And I made the joke on one of the interceptions. It was the first time a Notre Dame receiver had been hit in stride all game long because the offense was so frustrating. But hey, this is what happens when you play bad teams and you cause some pressure. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of sacks, which I think everybody would have loved seeing the sack numbers run up. But the defense did get 8 tackles for loss. They got 6 quarterback hurries. I earlier said in Discord it was 8. I had the numbers reversed in my head. So they were getting pressure on the quarterback, and when they did that, good things happened, and that's what you got to do. It's not just getting the sacks, which obviously you want to finish as many of those as possible, but you got to create havoc in the backfield, and you got to be able to get behind the line. It felt like for at least the first part of the game, MTA was camped out behind the line for the majority of that first quarter. He was just constantly there causing an issue, which was very, very positive to see.
No, I think overall, top to bottom, this is the exact kind of performance you had to have going into a matchup against a team like Georgia. You couldn't have, if these games were reversed, I think we'd be uber fucked. I mean, if this were week 1 and Louisville were week 2 going into Georgia, like, fuck it. We'd all be like, well, it's been a good one, guys. See y'all at 8-4. Bye. But now that this flipping of the order allowed Notre Dame to kind of like shake off the shit and then establish that, okay, these are the muscles that we need to flex and stretch out. These are the things that we know that we can do well, and ride the confidence of achieved success, proven results, and film of that proven result into a matchup that requires you're going into an awesome environment. You're on the road. You have to be pumped up. You have to play up to the situation.
And you're going into a very tough place to play as well, between the hedges over in Athens. My sister is like, I didn't realize you were playing in Georgia. Holy crap, that's always terrifying for us. Good luck. I'm like, oh, thanks. Appreciate it, sis. I mean, I don't know if I built too much more confidence. I feel the same about Georgia as I did before, which I'm still incredibly excited because you don't get a chance to watch your team participate in top 10 matchups that often. And I'm not expecting another Miami in this case. That was a wonderful, perfect storm of terrible events all happening at once. And I think some lessons were learned after that. So, but I don't know if it's enough to take out a team like Georgia because the linebacking play still could be better. Bilal had a good game, but what concerns me is anytime there's some kind of misdirection, option type plays, counters, or people, bootlegging to one side, there's over pursuit still, which, okay, maybe it's because there's faster players or not as fast players, and that's what's screwing with their timing. I don't know, but being able to see them bite way too many times on that and give up way too many chunk plays terrifies me a little bit. Now, granted, Georgia's not going to have similar option attacks, but they still have RPOs in their playbook. They can still do read options if they want to. Not that Fromm's going to kill you with his feet, but he'll probably pull it down once or twice just to keep you honest. And those once or twice, that may be all that needs to create the difference in the game. And that's what kind of terrifies me, especially straight up. Georgia, I think, can run over quite a few people, including our line.
That's what they did against Arkansas State. Their running attack is going to be right now. Notre Dame is among the bottom 10 teams in terms of yards per carry allowed. So I'm very, very concerned about the run defense situation. I understand that there's like an over pursuit of excitedness on the defensive ends, and on the D line in general is a little bit more sound on the outside than you'd like up the middle. But I don't know. I mean, if you're giving up rushing yards like you are against teams like New Mexico, Georgia's a different animal. And at this point, I think that unless Notre Dame's defense can keep them competitive, especially on the back end, the secondary, can keep things kind of in front of them and slow down Georgia's attack, the running defense is going to be the kind of the make or break situation.
Yeah, and if you want to go again, it's hard to judge these things because we haven't played good teams. I mean, quite frankly. So, if you want to see what the formulas say, the new SP Plus that came out today, Notre Dame first off moves up to number 10, so it's their first time cracking the top 10 in this rankings. The defense is rated 29th in the SP Plus, which is not great, but it isn't as awful as I think we would all feel based on the couple of games that we have seen before. And the offense on the same boat is rated 7. Now, again, keep in mind, a lot of this also has to do with preseason rankings, previous projections, because it's still early in the season. That's what Bill's really all the formulas are laying heavy on. I think it's like, if I remember right, like 7 or 8, where a lot of that stuff is finally kind of shoved out the door. So we're not even close to there yet. On the flip side, Georgia moves up to number 2. Their offense, number 4. Defense, number 7. So again, this is quite the lopsided mismatch right now, as far as looking at the pure numbers, even adjusted numbers. So it's going to be tough sledding, but things are getting better because Notre Dame has been slowly rising up SP plus, even though some of the performances and the quarters lack a lot to be desired, and you're not getting the junk time, which in this game was basically the entire fourth quarter. So you're not getting the benefit of continuing to pile points on New Mexico. Same thing with Georgia. They're not getting the benefit of all the extra points they piled on the Arkansas State late either. So it'll be interesting. But there are a few other fun things that happened in this game. A couple of my favorites. Brian Kelly dropping F-bombs at the referees for not seeing the timeout when he's up 40.
He stuck. I mean, I felt like, did it not feel like at one point, like he knew he was creating a spectacle? It's like when the dad's at the grocery store yelling at whatever department manager, and at that point it's been very clearly established that he is just making a scene. And so he commits harder to making said scene. When Brian Kelly ripped that visor and sunglasses off, I felt like he was playing up to the likely assumption. Plus, the crowd had already given him some auditory feedback. Ooh.
Oh, the student section was into it, man, and it was giving me life. They were all into it. It reminded me, because I'm a huge baseball fan, it was the manager that goes out. He's like, I'm getting tossed. I'm just going to do it. Yep. I'm that pissed, and I'm going to try to get my team, motivated. But you usually don't see that happening when your team is absolutely dominating. So the fact that BK had that kind of fire was, I'm sure a lot of people are going to pearl clutch it. But, oh, man, I freaking loved it. And he didn't purple face either. He was as calm as you can be dropping that many F-bombs.
I'm telling you, I felt like he was doing it for the cameras, kind of. A little bit.
It was pretty great, but because whatever the referee initially told him set him off.
Yeah, he was hating it. He was not having it.
The other thing I enjoyed BK doing was going for it on fourth down, fourth and goal no less, while also up by 40 plus.
Up like 40 points, yeah.
I mean,
like, well, we're doing it.
You just don't usually see that for Notre Dame. Usually, like, okay, we're gonna take it easy on you. We'll kick the field goal. It's all okay.
Not 2019 BK. Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see that kind of, killer instinct to, Milfy saying is like, well, is he doing it for the cameras or is he doing it for the team that they got to have that killer instinct? It may very well be that kind of a message. Sure. Who knows?
It could be that kind of coachy psychological thing, but like it's just one of those things. It's like when it's part of the spectacle, like you just kind of get in the moment. I don't think it was that deep.
It was awesome. I enjoyed it. I would love to see it again. But and the team on the sidelines was just like, yeah, give it to him, coach. Fuck him up. Yeah. Fuck him up. Because
overall a good win.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to take it for what it is. There's not a ton that you can glean, I don't think, in terms of like learning about this team. Aside from this is now the first time that it's become apparent to me that the running back depth is a problem. But Yeah, I mean it's Georgia. That's all we got next. I mean we can't really make more of it than that.
Yeah, and we'll see, because one of the other things I've seen floating around is, well, are they holding things back from Georgia? Well, all that's about to go out the window in a hurry. So
Yeah, exactly.
there ain't nothing going to be held back now. At least we get a couple. I mean, Komet coming back is a huge weapon that hasn't been in there before. And now that we've seen Tommy Tremble has got something there, I know the idea was having a lot of 2 running back sets with Jafar and Jones, which I think really would have caused a lot of problems. But Komet and Tremble will cause some similar problems as well. Those are, I mean, imagine if you have a 4-wide set that has Tremble, Komet, Claypool, and McKinley out there. Have fun covering that.
I'm fucked.
There's going to be a mismatch on the field, and you're just going to have to pick who you feel like is going to, what matchup is going to hurt you the least, and just kind of swallow that poison pill. And it was because that was a similar logic of having Jafar and Jones in there at the same time, because they would keep splitting one or the other out wide. And, well, if you crowd the box too much, then, one of those guys, they're good receiving running backs, so they're going to burn you. And if you pay too much attention to them out wide, well, both of them can run the ball right down your throat as well and go flying past you. So there's a couple things I'm really hoping to see right off the bat, and we'll get into it more as the week goes on, but I'm really hoping we see that 2-type formation. I really, really want to see us immediately taking shots and not having this conservative ass, let's get Books footing underneath them. No, you just got to go.
Put it downfield. I just have yet to see it consistently enough to trust it.
Because if you remember the one time that we had a game, the closest similarity we have to this where it turned out good for us was in Norman when they took out Oklahoma. And that's what immediately took the crowd out of the game. Immediate long touchdowns. It's the only way you can do it. Yep. You got to take your shots right out of the gate. You have to go all in right off the bat because you're the underdog. The line's already been out around 13-14 right now, not in Notre Dame's favor. So we will see how that all works out. Well, you got anything else for this one, Shane?
Nah, man. I'm just ready to see what the Irish can do. They might shock the world, man. Who knows?
Yeah, I would love it, and obviously I'll be cheering for it. But we'll see what goes down. But with that being said, thank you to everybody that joined us here over live, twitch.tv/HerLoyalSons. You can also follow this podcast. Please subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts can be found. Join us in Discord. That is our live chat channel, herloyalsons.com/Discord. And of course, you can always find us at herloyalsons.com. We will be back with picks Wednesday night. But until next time, y'all, go Irish, beat Bulldogs. Have a good one.